Okay, so we walked a little ways, but we're on the property. And this is Bunker Hill, which is the annex Margie had talked about before.
This is where we put up our temporary stabling for the horse trials. I do not have race cars that belong to a friend of mine. We don't have a place to park his truck. So, a little mini Indy cars. And in that building, the gentleman who I bought the big property from, he had an excavating business, and that was his shop, and then he got too big and had to buy bigger property. But I have all my competition equipment in there and a bunch of the fancier cross-country jumps that really do better staying undercover. So that's chock-a-block right now. And we do our stadium rail painting and stuff in there. So it's not heated, doesn't have very good light, the roof leaks, but it works.
Yeah, that's its purpose.
And this barn was built in the 80s, as was the fencing, which is falling over, but we do the best to keep it patched up, and we have a very good hot wire on the top, so the horses are just fine respecting that.
Right, they just stay off the fence. Yeah.
So again, we have 5 stalls. It doesn't have the amenities that the main barn does, so I give them a little tiny discount on the board, but the care is the same. You actually have better turnout in a way. We can put groups together in the bigger fields. Doesn't have a bathroom, so we have a porta-john. And no hot water, so it's a little bit rough around the edges, but the horses love it over here. It's very quiet, and it works.
Yeah.
So the downside is in the wintertime is walking or riding down the farm road, which is why we have our little lights, because it's dark. I don't know who that is. Oh, it's Abby with her bike. I thought it was a small child at first. I don't have my glasses. Getting down to the indoor in the wintertime, on a bad weather day is not very great, but that's life.
Yeah.
So it works.
Did the size, you went from 13 over there,
12 stalls?
12 stalls to another 5. Did that change your labor picture?
It
Awkward.
the other way around. It took me almost, I sold a barn I had in Whelihan, and it had 22 stalls or something, but only 20 acres, and I knew I wasn't going to stay there forever. I think I was there 5 years or something. When I sold that, I moved myself to a private farm that had 4 stalls and a little tiny barn and an apartment where I stayed, and then a 6-stall barn on another down the hill from that. So a handful of boarders came with me, and other people, they knew I was looking for property, and they kind of found places, and I would run around and teach. So they kind of stayed with me, a good handful of them did, as I looked for property. So it literally took me a couple of years. I went all over the place within an hour of here, and I realized as I was looking, right, this is home base for me. I came here early 70s, and my clientele has grown up around me since then. But it was hard to find property that was what I wanted and what I could afford. And I was looking up in Vermont and nearby, anywhere within an hour of here, and I just wasn't having any luck. This wasn't for sale. All this stuff was not for sale, but I knew the guy from the early 70s, even before then, just living in the neighborhood. And it was Chris, the cross-country guy, who said, "Oh, Russ has property over in North Chatham, don't you know that?" I'm going, "No." And it wasn't for sale, but he said, "Oh, go ask him, maybe he'll sell it." Sure enough, he said, "Sure, I'll sell. I'd rather have a horse farm there than 20 houses," because in the 80s there was a housing boom at one point.
Right.
So sure enough, that's how we got it. It was just, and here it was in my backyard.
Right.
I was spending 2.5 years looking all over the place. So that was just fortuitous, I guess. But anyway, and he did all the work. He's a very good excavator, and it was all gravelly, and he sifted some of the soil for the paddocks, and he did the outdoor has a pad and stone dust and fabric, and we did it right. And thank God we did it right the first time, because basically that rain drains so quickly. It can rain really hard, and in 2 hours you can be out there. I mean, it was done right. The funny thing is, it's so big that if you look down across the grade toward the paddocks is like, I think 2.5. and the other is 1 point something, and we call it downhill. You know, it's really amazing. If you're cantering from the crest down, it's like, well, the balance is a little different. It's like literally downhill, and it looks dead flat.
Yeah.
But the water goes right where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So that part's good. So he did a great job for me. I was pleased with pretty much everything. It wasn't the fencing guys. The wood is not lasting what I thought it would, but anyway, you can't have everything.
The posts are pressure treated,
Yeah.
and
Well, no,
not these.
Not so much. That row in the back is brand new as of 2 years ago because we were having to take. The only way to get into that paddock was through that paddock, and that was getting dangerous. So now we have new gates so that you can get into that paddock and that paddock without mixing horses. So that part was good. It evolved. So anyway, this barn, as soon as I signed on the dotted line, this barn was empty, had been sitting empty. So 5 horses, boom, here they came. And we had, I think the ring was done, the outdoor was done. So there was a place to ride when they moved in. And then that barn got finished, indoor got finished. And the minute I opened that door, that barn was full. So that was like...
Yeah, that's fantastic, yeah.
Different than today, but anyway, I was thrilled. So that was nice. And as I say, it's been pretty much... I had 2 summers ago, I had like 4 empty stalls, which was very unusual. And it wasn't unusual to have a few empty stalls in the summertime, which was odd. But as a rule, I've been lucky enough to be almost always full. So, and that still, to be honest, doesn't always pay the bills. Any horse farm, as you well know, is a money pit. Maintenance, it's just maintenance. Because now, 15 years ago now, my lovely fence is, a couple last years, I'm replacing fence boards. Now I'm replacing a few posts. So, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And they're pressure treated. So.
Well, the thing is, if you build something relatively new, I was talking to Mallory about that at Gallagher's, put all the fencing up at the same time, it's aging in the same
All at the
rate.
same time, that's
And
right.
so, yeah, you
Right.
try to stay ahead of it, but
Right.
you still end up with
You're
crunch.
fighting that I'll get all the time.
So,
But it's working, and I'm very happy that I'm here. And if COVID hadn't hit, I was sustainable. I had proved that I was sustainable. I'm not driving a Mercedes, but I don't care. And I was happy and doing what I want to do. And yes, I wish I had done it 30 years earlier, but I didn't know as much. So now it's a little harder to do the work I used to do. So that part, getting a little bit older is frustrating, that I have to pay people to sometimes do the stuff I could do. It's not a lot, but it's a little, you feel it a little bit more. So I'm just am hoping I can be still active enough to enjoy the day I pay off my mortgage.
yeah.
Then I'll have money to take a vacation so, if I'm full.
Yeah.
So,
Now, you've been doing some judging, too, is that?
yes, that was one thing I did in the 2.5 years I was looking. Because I didn't have a barn. I had the time. I actually got my ICP certification and my judge's license in the same year or year and a half. And the dressage in particular just dovetailed fantastically. And I've been very